So I'm not a big fan of this sizing. This is definitely one we'll have to work on privately because we have to, you know, completely switch the way you think about this board. On ace jack, we can see that very, very aggressively. I mean, there's no flush draw to worry about. Villain just has nothing very often. Even this sizing, I think, is too large. And again, we see this large open sizing, which I'm not a fan of at all, actually. So definitely would like to see a 3-bet, though. A bit more money to go after. If you play these games, guys, especially on the button, these large opening sizes don't work. So this board is obviously good for you, but it's also good for villain. I mean, we're going to have 8s, we're going to have queens, we're going to have ace-queen. But other than maybe queens, he's going to have many of the same hands as well. So it's, again, one of those boards where you don't always get to bet, but you get to bet a lot. I don't hate if you just bet this hand. This hand gets bet virtually always. Not every single time, but virtually always. It's a hand which obviously has amazing equity because, I mean, you have a gut shot and a flush draw at the same time. If you get a fold out of him when you have jack high, that's not a big deal, right? I mean, you want him to fold. Whereas if you have a hand like queens, well, you don't want him to fold. So you really don't even mind check calling here. Could have waited for a long time there. I accidentally paused. Ace queen is a nice 3-betting hand. I would have gone a little bit larger, but it's okay. And on this turn, eventually, so we can do a couple of things here. I mean, even shoving is okay. I mean, there's 76 blinds out there behind, and we've got 45. This is a board on which protection is obviously extremely important. If you got a hand like king queen now, I mean, your hand's looking really good. At the same time, you know, any ace or jack or 10 or 9 or heart or club potentially, they all make your hand look, I mean, obviously not a queen. They all make your hand look a lot less appealing. So I actually wouldn't mind if you overbet shoved here. I also wouldn't mind if you just bet this hand. Ace 10 is going to be a good calling hand. The only tough one, the tough thing about this bet size is that if you get shoved on, you're in a really ugly spot. And you're going to get shoved on. Okay, so we don't get shoved on this time. When I said we get shoved on, it means we're going to get shoved on sometimes. Obviously, I cannot predict the future, and I didn't know what villain was going to do. I haven't watched this footage. I didn't watch the footage before I started reviewing to make the analysis as organic as I possibly could make it. Now in the river, it's kind of a shitty spot. I mean, the flush draw missed. Both of them missed. The gut shots missed. Obviously, a queen is less, you know, before we were value betting happily with hands like aces and kings, but now we're not so happily value betting anymore. So with this hand specifically, you probably want to give up. You don't block the queen very well. And, you know, villain had a hand like ace jack of hearts. He would call the flop, he would call the turn, and he would fold the river, and you block a hand like that. So this hand is not the best bluffing hand. Against 1/3 pot, I think we have to call with ace 10. We've got 2 overcards and a, you know, some showdown value, so I don't really like that fold. This hand is unfortunately not a shove. And the Wolfman, he's thinking about it, so he probably doesn't have a hand like 9s, which would just check behind. He probably just had a hand like king queen. 8-9 is kind of loose, but I think open raising is best. Raising 9-6 is definitely not best. Queen Jack 7 monotone is actually a very interesting board as well. I mean, in position is going to have a lot of flushes. He's going to have a lot of 1-diamond hands. Obviously, he's going to have hands like pocket 7s and a queen and a jack. So this is a board on which you have to be quite careful. You know, obviously, if this were a flush draw board, it would be significantly less problematic. Villain is going to have a lot of hands like 6-4 diamonds here, and ace-3 of diamonds, and, you know, 10-8 of diamonds, and 10-5 of diamonds, all that type of stuff. So you're probably overrating this board a little bit. Well, since we've bet the flop, I think this hand is a good hand to bet on the turn. We've got a double gut shot on a flush draw. It's also not the type of hand you really want to check call, right? Given that you have 9 high and you lose to other bluffs. So I would like to see a bluff here. I'd like to see the 3/4 sizing. You're kind of polarized here. At the same time, you know, you're a little bit scared of what's about to happen. So I'm not a big fan of this sizing. This is definitely one we'll have to work on privately because we have to, you know, completely switch the way you think about this board. And now this is kind of suspicious, right? I mean, villain calls against third pot and now he raises. So, you know, he's not representing a whole lot. He's representing a flush check behind. He's representing maybe hand like 5s plus diamond. But yeah, this is very, very suspicious. It kind of looks like he's trying to buy the pot with some kind of bluff. Queen 10 obviously is an open raise. Seven, 4, is obviously not the greatest board for us, but it's not that bad. I mean, before we saw 8, 6, 6, but, you know, villain is probably going to defend more 6s in the big blinds than 4s, right? So we can be a little bit more aggressive here. Okay. I would expect most villains to not really check raise enough on boards like these. They should be quite aggressive. Queen 10 suited, easy open raise. Very playable hand. Not so much against an imposition 3-bet, but very playable hand. And we see Chadzilla flat calls very, very quickly. I mean, this could be a recreational player. So pretty good board for everybody. I imagine that Chadzilla has hands like 9s and 7s and maybe has like Queen 9 suited and hands like King Queen off. King Queen off obviously would be too loose of a call, but it doesn't matter whether or not he should call it. What matters is that he does. And then Cielo is going to have hands like, you know, 9, 7 suited, whatnot. So this is, again, one of those 2 straight value hands. So I would definitely have bets here, but, you know, Queen 10 is a nice hand to check. And now he very quickly bets quite small, and the big blind quickly calls. So I think against a big blind, you're virtually always ahead. Against the other player, not always. I don't mind calling. I think check raising is okay as well, but I think calling is best. 5 is not the greatest card for you. 8, 6 does get there, and I assume both players could have it. Okay. So Cielo quickly called the flop. He's like, got something decent, and he's probably saying he's got 8, 6. So the problem here is that, I mean, you've got no blockers to his, you know, to his reasonable sets, to his straights. You even block hands like Jack 10 that may take this strange line. And even if you're ahead against him, I mean, you have to call a pretty big river bet, right? And also, Chadzilla is behind you, who could have all the good stuff himself. So it seems kind of tight, but I actually just fold here. I'm also not a big fan of this play. Yes, this player is Ukrainian, and the Ukrainians tend to be quite aggressive, but yeah, I would just fold. Possible weird. Well, no, it's not possibly weird. It's definitely weird. You know, the thing is, we just want to figure out what he's got. So I really, in a few minutes, I want to see you open that hand and see if there was a showdown, because you can get a lot of reads on your opponents right here. Ace-5 suited is an easy open raising hand. It's a nice 4-bet bluffing hand sometimes as well. I expect most villains to not really 3-bet super aggressively, so calling a lot of 3-bets out of position is not very attractive. Ace-5 suited normally would be a clear call. However, this player is a little bit short, which hurts us a little bit. And he's playing 27 VPIP, which is kind of loose, but he's only playing 6% 3-bet, which is kind of tight. So yeah, very, very close spot. I would expect you to fold, which I don't mind. If we were deeper, this is definitely much more of a call. Ace-Jack is a hand we probably have to VPIP in some way. Given the high rake, 3-betting is probably a bit more attractive. We're facing the, you know, the turnover better, Cielo Walker. So I'd like to see you 3-bet here. Eventually. Okay. And this hand is obviously an easy fold against a 4-bet. I mean, you're dominated and offsuit. Your hand is not that good. Your hand is good in the sense that when you 3-bet the hand with an ace and a jack in it, you're just going to get a lot of folds, right? It's just more likely villain has a loose hand like jack 9 suited, and he wasn't going to call you. King 6, easy open raise. Yep. A lot of tanking in these games. Easy open raise 9-8. Probably we can call a reasonable 3-bet as well. We see our opponents playing 11% 3-bet, which is quite aggressive, especially in these games. So 9-8 can be defended. Against our Dutch friend. Ace and suited, again, easy open raise. These suited aces obviously play very well. If you hit flush over flush, you're probably going to stack somebody. Eight, 7-5 is not the greatest board for us. We can expect villain to defend 6-4 suited, 9-6 suited, 8-7 suited, all that type of stuff. So, you know, you can bet this hand at a lower frequency, but, you know, not very often. Meanwhile, ace king, obviously easy squeeze, do about 13. So yeah, low frequency bet with ace 10, but you know, not very often. I'm seeing a diamond, which is a good card. And against this pretty quick big bet, easy call. We do block some hands like jack 10, which kind of sucks. It reduces his bluffing frequency a little bit, but I mean, we've got 2 overcards, we've got a nut flush draw, which is obviously live. Tricky card. And now villain checks. When villain leads out large and then checks this river, it makes me think he has something. You know, a hand like, for instance, 7-5 suited. It's kind of close here on the river whether or not to bluff. Again, against these types of players, if you apply a lot of pressure, you can probably get a lot of folds from them, even if it's not theoretically correct. So I wouldn't mind if you just go for a big bet here. You can definitely represent hands like ace 9 or, you know, diamonds with a 9, or even hands like pocket 4s, or even hands like 5-4. So you're going for a really big, bet, even an over bet. I think that's okay. Really looks to me like he has a hand like 2 pair. He had the very disguised straight. I didn't even see it. Fair enough. I don't think he should fold that. Well, I guess he just had the 4, right? The 3 is irrelevant. Ace 4 suited is a nice 3-bet bluffing hand. Meanwhile, pocket 5s, I'd actually like to see you flat on the button. You're not going to do a lot of flatting here, but you can flat here. And jack 6-3, we can c-bet quite a bit on a board like this. Obviously, we don't have 6s and 3s that often, but we do have jacks, queens, kings, aces, club draws. Sounds like pocket 10s there looking pretty good. So I don't really mind this bet. You also block ace-jack suited, which is very helpful. You block 4-5 suited, which may continue. Well, obviously will continue, so your hand is not the worst for betting. And unsurprisingly, you get a fold. Obviously, you really wanted that 4 to be a 5, but you know, it wasn't going to happen. And so multi-way, you can definitely expect a lot of guys to have pairs here. That makes sense. So let's see, 10-8 suited, easy raise. And I don't mind you folding with with pocket 5s there against the multi-way bet out of position. That was quite large. 6-7, sometimes raise, sometimes folds. You can be pretty loose in these games, so I don't mind if you open raise this hand. I would say don't take so much time. Easy fold. There's no reason to spend so much time pretending to think about your hand. Just snap open raise. Maybe take 2 seconds. That's something which really frustrates me at high stakes. People tanking every hand, with easy decisions. I mean, by now you should know what, let's say, your button opening range is, right? Even if, let's say, you know, you want to RNG like a certain hand, which is the bottom of your range, it takes 2 seconds to do that. So there's no reason to tank for 10 seconds. You just play fewer hands and lower your win rate. You're not giving anything away. And that's assuming people even look into this type of stuff. You know, people playing 4 tables of Blitz or Zoom or whatever fast fold it is. I mean, they don't pay attention to any of this stuff. So you can check full range on ace 10-3 if you like. You can also have bets. This hand wouldn't be the worst to bet with. You block ace 5 suited. You know you can you've got a backdoor straight draw, so it's not the worst hand to bluff with. Villain calls. I mean, that's obviously the downside of not having a diamond. If you had a diamond, it would be a much better bluffing opportunity. So again, you could bluff this one sometimes, but you know, your blockers now are not so great anymore. A villain is still going to continue with hands like ace queen, ace jack with a diamond here, and you're basically toast against that, against those hands. A5 off, I don't mind if you just check behind. You'll have to bluff raise some of these shitty hands sometimes, but you know, if you don't know what you're doing, I'm fine with you just checking this one behind most of the time. So we're going to have a lot of the 10 deuce offsuit type of stuff here. So we are not completely screwed, but obviously the board is a bit better for out of position than it is for in position. So when villain quickly checks, again, I don't think he has that much, but probably something. So with, you know, with such a bad hand, I probably wouldn't stab very often. I would be overly aggressive against these guys because I don't think they're that good, but be careful. King 7, even against a small raise with this rake, we just gotta fold. And ace 10, you know, we would have gladly open raised, but we don't get to. So we just gotta fold it. Yeah, I think with the rake, you have to fold king 7. The rake is too high. So if there were no rake, this would definitely be a call. Villain bets third pot, and king 7 is going to be a call, virtually always. You can occasionally raise if you like. This hand is pretty good bluff catcher. I mean, you unblock all the 9-8, 10-8 type of straight draws. And the 5 is obviously a good card for you. You're going to have some straights and 2 pairs on this card. You're going to have some lands like pair plus draw. So, you know, unsurprisingly, villain checks behind. And on the river, I don't mind if you just check here and try and get the showdown. The queen is not bad for him. You know, he could have taken hands like queen 10 and bluffed the flop, and now he got there. And villain has some kind of very vague hand. I'm not quite sure what that was. I think your recording is lagging a little bit. Or maybe it's just me. Jack 8. Okay, that's fair. I think he probably can bet the river, but okay, fine. Easy open raise with Jack 9. Even Jack 8 is, you know, Jack 8 is closer, but we can probably still raise. Jack 7 is a fold. This hand plays quite well in the sense that it's pretty connected. All right, and this is going to be the last hand. It's a very interesting one. It's, you know, if I were doing a coaching session, I would say this is a hand we can talk about for 2 hours because it really is. I'll tell you that on these monotone boards, if you bet, you generally want to bet on the smaller side. And this board is obviously good for us in the sense that we have all the big flushes, we have all the sets and 2 pairs. But at the same time, villain can have a lot of stuff too. So it's not as if you can, you know, you can just blindly bet and forget about it. So I actually think this is a good check behind. It's a good medium strength hand to check behind, but you also have to check back some stronger hands sometimes. Meanwhile, ace queen suited is obviously an easy 3-betting hand. Villain bets half pot, and against that sizing, easy call. He could even bet, you know, similar hands for value, and you beat all of his bluffs. And if you fold second pair after checking behind, you're just folding way too much. Okay, not the worst card. We block 10-9, which is great. And we, you know, beat king 10. We beat hands like ace 10. And so villain bets half pot, which is a sizing I don't really like. It's kind of close. It's kind of close, to be honest. I mean, this sizing, yeah, it's not a sizing I really really think is a good play. So he goes half pot on the turn, half pot on the river. It's pretty close. I mean, you do unblock all the hands like king 10, ace 10. So I can't blame you for calling, but against these nitty players, I don't want to make a habit out of calling. So if this were a really, really, really tough player, I'd probably call. But I think in reality, folding is probably the best play. And the ace queen suited looks like a juicy hand, but we're running out of time. So actually, I guess once we face his very, very large bet, we can just fold. Villain should just be betting quite small. So when he 4-bets huge, and then just bombs the flop kind of at the stack depth, we can just fold.